Welcome to another edition of Haas Talks, the road show. We're in the boonies of Oklahoma, and this guy flew in just to do a special podcast, whatever you want to call this. Jake Hagopian, if you don't know. Jake, thanks for taking time out to come sit in the beautiful trees of Oklahoma with me, man.
Yeah, man, I was wondering what I had to do to get on one of these shows.
Dude, this is it. I don't even know where to start, really. I mean, everybody knows you're a race car driver. Everybody knows you've won the Tulsa Shootout. Everybody knows that you're the owner of D1. Real quick, you went through a tough time here just in the past couple of weeks, losing the guy that was like really instrumental in like helping build you, and helping D1, from the ground up. Gary was just a gnarly dude.
Yeah, Gary was just, I mean, he was married to the game. Yeah. And he made a career out of helping people build their race cars, and it was, it goes back before Driven. He was part of Western Speed and Fuel, the famous number 40 Orange Midgets. He was part of that crew, and they had their speed shop at Hoosier Tire West, and Gary helped build that from the ground up in the early 90s. And before that, he was a crew guy on prolific midget teams on the West Coast. He was just part of racing in the Central Valley, and I was lucky enough to have him as part of our program. And before I even bought Driven, he was just a staple within our company. He was retiring in 2010, and my dad said, "Hey, do you want to keep working? And we're going to start this speed shop." And we came up with the name Driven, and the whole basis of what it was just to service the racer and give people a quote unquote better option.
The name Driven, like, it's a cool name.
Yeah, I mean,
but where did it come from? Was it like where you got, because there wasn't no Chat GPT back then, right? Like, are you guys like picking stuff out of a hat? Like,
I couldn't even tell you. I can remember back in that time, like, graphics was my big thing. I was just finishing up going to college, Fresno State, just got engaged in that time frame, and we're going to start this speed shop, and I'm just kind of pro bono. Like, I'm not working for my dad. It's just part of my life, and we're racing, and we were doing Stallards at the time. Like, if you go back farther enough, we were Stallard people. My dad was the West Coast Stallard dealer. D1 didn't exist. And so my dad's like, "Oh, what are we going to call it? We're not going to call it Hagopian Engineering." That's what my dad's racing business used to be called. It's like, we got to come up with something cool. So he comes to me one day, and I'm on the computer designing stuff, and he's like, "What about Driven?" Driven. All right, I'll figure out something. That night I came up with the logo. And he's like, that's cool. Like, we're rolling with that. So at first it was Driven Motorsports, and then I started looking for domain names for websites and stuff, and that didn't work. So we came up with Driven Performance, and it just stuck, and then fast forward a couple years, we get in a situation where we're going to be in the chassis business, and I decided to call them D1s because I came up with a logo that looked cool. And personally, I thought building race cars was going to be a terrible idea.
Yeah.
Like, the chassis builder thing, there's a lot of drama that it's like Niners, Raiders, Giants, Dodgers, Yankees, Mets, whatever you want to say, Boston Red Sox, Yankees. And like, I just didn't want that in my life. I didn't want that drama. And, but Gary was the one that said, you have to do it.
You have to do it.
You have to do it. And he goes, this is the best idea. This is what's going to take this business to the next level. And I'm like, I just don't want to get into chassis building. Like, I was against it. And, we took a leap of faith, and through, goodwill and, Gary's just great demeanor and customer service. And then me being able to learn from him. Like, my dad was a good guy, but he had his times where he can kind of ruffle feathers and rub people the wrong way, but that's not how Gary was, And so I got to see firsthand what it was like to take care of customers. And if it was, if it's a $20,000 race car or a $2 fitting, you make it happen.
Yeah.
And, we built our basis around that, and we fast forward to 2015, and my dad just didn't want to be in the racing industry anymore. He was just tired of just being on the go or being involved. He just wanted to chill out, go travel and stuff. And he came to me and just said, "Hey, either we're going to sell out, or I'm going to quit, or you're going to buy it. One of the two." And I wasn't working for Driven. I was racing, and I was helping pro bono, and I had a young family, and I just went home and talked to my wife, and I'm like, I love this. And if I can give it an honest 10 years of being straightforward, doing the best job possible. Just, you know, I just kind of looked at it and said, the only thing I don't know how to do is weld. I'm not a fabricator, but I feel like I got enough patience where I can work with customers and help them get better. I got my marketing skills from the graphic side. We're racing. I'm neck deep in this. You know, I feel like we check all the boxes. Like, we can do this. And she's like, okay, you know, that's what you know, it's what you love. It's what you want to do. And dude, for the first couple of years, like, I didn't pay myself. Like, my wife was doing all the work, and I was paying Gary, and Gary was, you know, showing up every day, and I was just like, still, I was pro bono for Driven. And, you know, right when we started, Driven Midwest happened, and the thing just snowballed. And the summary of the whole thing is Gary was there the whole time.
Yeah.
In his mid-70s, you know, showing up every day, rocking. I mean, the guy went to Dallas 3 days a week.
And still came to work.
And he still
saw that
work.
You know, the deal that you read at his memorial, and it flabbergasted me. Like, I've heard a lot of cool stories about people laughing and cutting up with Gary and stuff just from Driven Midwest and everything. And it's like, if that guy reached that far, I can only imagine the impact that he had on people that he saw on a regular basis, let alone a daily basis.
He wasn't extra. Like, he never did anything special. He's just somebody you could always rely on, you know. And I can remember, like, in the early days, I'd answer the phone and people, Gary there? And I'm like, no, he's busy right now. Can I help you? Well, I'll just call back. And to get off the phone, and Gary's like, who's that? And I go, I don't know, but they want to talk to you. They don't want to talk to me, you know. And it was just, that's who he was. You know, I owned the place, you know. They didn't want to talk to me. They want to talk to Gary.
Right.
So, you know, just being that guy for people. He was that person for his family. He was that person for me. He was that person for the racer. And, you know, he didn't have to win the Tulsa shootout to be that guy.
Right.
He didn't have to be the guy welding them. You know, it's just, when you needed Taros, he had him, you know, and he always made sure that we had stuff coming. If it wasn't in the store, it was on order. He just cared, you know, like it was his life's work. He wanted to make sure that people trusted us and relied on us. And I truly feel like, you know, this isn't a knock to my dad, but if Gary wasn't there, like, I don't know if I would have developed the mindset of the Driven mindset that we have right now. Like, Gary really helped us embellish in that.
Yeah.
You know? And then Harley and Ollie and Frank in the past, like, we were able to extend that to the Midwest. And so it's, you know, first things first, it started with the basis that Gary helped us establish, and that was carried over from Western Speed and Fuel into Driven. You know, there's a lot of people that follow Gary just in the matter of trust.
Let's talk about that brand and how it's kind of just snowballed. And I mean, you're everywhere now. It feels like Driven is picking up a kind of a force to be reckoned with, that people understand and acknowledge the fact that you guys not only have the knowledge and the passion for it, but you also have the dedication to the sport. Tell me about just the relationship that you have with your dealers. I know that Holly and Harley, they have taken it to a whole nother dimension, really. Like, it's really cool to see how it's progressed from whenever they started to where they are now and how everything's growing.
I mean, first things first, you can't do anything on your own. Like, that, you have to have a team, you know. And I think truly, like, there's a lot of trust in the organization. You know, the Hollands, they don't do anything, for lack of a better term, half-assed.
Yeah.
You know, and I'm not that way either. And, you know, I don't want to say, like, the foundation of Driven just transpired into Tulsa, and then Harley and Holly and the Holland family, and they just took it and ran with it, you know. And there really was no boundaries, you know. And there's vision, there's big vision. To be quite honest, the new shop, it's flabbergasting. Like, it's just beyond, you know, what I ever expected. And I never asked that of Harley, you know. He just, when you look at it and you kind of go like, wow, you know. And it's just like, then I kind of stop and think, I'm like, and it's just like, they believe in us. They believe in the idea that Driven's not going to go away.
Mm-hmm.
And when, like, I tell my son, it's like, if I look at you and I know you're trying, and I know that I see a passion in your eyes, I don't care if you're winning. As long as you're neck deep and just giving it your all. And so that's what you see with what Harley and Holler are doing. And I would like to just, maybe if Harley was sitting here, he'd nod his head and say, yeah, this is why I'm doing it, because I know that you guys are out there doing everything you can in California to help us grow with you, you know? And so, yeah, we just got a lot of good people right now. I mean, Holly has come in her own. I mean, she's great at the job of servicing customers, you know, and she's taken a racing career from being a race car driver to, you know, falling into a role just as Gary, you know, where people really rely on Holly.
And she has a personal connection with people.
Yeah, for sure.
She goes above. Whenever you
beyond.
talk about Gary and how he went above and beyond to make sure that it didn't matter, again, if it was a chassis or a fitting, that he had it. Holly takes the time to give that one-on-one dedication to every single customer I've seen her write hand notes to put in a package with the dilateral.
Yeah, that's not happening in our boxes, you know. And that's the thing is, it's just like, hey, it's such a competitive industry that a little bit of extra goes a long way, you know. And we don't ask her to do that, you know. That's thought-provoking, just putting yourself out there and telling people that you care. And you know, that means a lot to us, because there's certain things where it's just like, I mean, not that we're not going to do that, but it's like, I never really thought about that, but it doesn't hurt. You know?
Again, it's no boundary.
It's no boundaries. Yeah.
Not, don't do this. You can't do that.
Yeah.
You're not trying to make everybody walk a straight and narrow, because once you start living inside the box, you start forgetting what's outside the box and what else is going on.
Yeah. And like, even at home, you know, like, just like Michael's, he kind of fell into a role where he was like shadowing Gary and stuff. And then Gary had some health issues, and then like Michael just kind of fell into that role. And he had a little bit of experience in the past, but you know, we're at Driven, it's like, we're going to do that. You know, there's a few times where people call and they're like, dude, this guy wants like something that's just like, we're not going to make no money off of this. Like, it's kind of a pain in the butt. And I'm like, what would Gary do, man? Like, would Gary get it? And he's like, yeah. And I'm like, figure it out. Like, just get it. And that's, you know, between Holly and like Gary helping us establish that mindset, you know, it's like, it's truthfully like, we're just doing everything we can to make people feel like we care, you know, on top of hopefully our cars perform on track. And there's a lot of good options in the industry. How do you differentiate yourself? Well, you bring the personal aspect into it, you know. So that's what we're working off of right now.
Service after the sell.
That's right.
Right there. That's right. It is. So we've talked about Jake Hagopian and the business mindset and kind of where you get that from. Let's talk about Jake Hagopian, the racer. Jake Hagopian, the racer, has won a lot of cool races. In your opinion, what would have to be maybe like the top two or three races if you had to pick? Hopefully you say Tulsa's won, at least one. And you don't have to list them in any order. This is in no particular order, but maybe top three wins, because there's some big races in California too that don't take slouches.
Right. Nah, I mean, like, when I go like off of pure like euphorium, like how it felt, winning the Hustle in 2004, like I just didn't expect to. Like, it was the first time I'd win outside of California, other than going to Australia, to go and try and run a big race. So we showed it. Like, I didn't think that we could win. I felt like we had speed, but like I can remember taking the lead on lap one, going by Flood and Andrew Peters, and I'm like, holy shit, I'm leading the Hustle, you know, like, and like, dude, just ran scared for 40 laps and like did it. And it just like got out of the car, and it was just like, it was bliss. Like, I'd never felt that way before, because I didn't expect it.
Right.
Like, I didn't expect it, and it happened, and it's like I truly feel like it really helped us establish D1 in the Midwest, you know. And we weren't even trying. I was just going to race. It wasn't even like a business venture, you know. It was Eric Wright's car. It was a really good friend of mine, and he believed that I could go out there and do well. And at the time, I didn't even own Driven. That was still my pro bono days. You know, I was more JHD, JH Designs, than I was Driven at that time. And that would, like, the Hustle, like, I have never been able to replicate that feeling of bliss. Like, even when I watch the videos, like, Flood sliding me on the white flag lap, like, still makes my heart stop.
Yeah.
You know, and then I take the checker, and it's just like, yeah, I did that. Like, I did that. And growing up, like, I didn't race. I raced junior sprints. I raced restricted. My parents divorced when I was in high school, and like I was playing baseball and basketball, and my dad's like, you have the rest of your life to race. Like, we just need to take a break. So I didn't really race a lot in high school. Not maybe a half dozen times, like over 3 years. So I got out of high school and started going to Fresno State, and we started racing again. And so like my racing quote unquote career didn't start until like 2007. So the primitive years for me to like really establish myself as a talent in California, just, I don't know. I always felt like I was trying to keep up with Michael and Mitchell Faceno, you know, and we were racing against Stan Yockey and Kiwi Alexander and like some heavy hitters back then. And like just never was that, like I kind of was that guy, and I got told by a couple people sometimes like, yeah, you're almost that guy, but not really. And it's like, it pissed me off, you know, like I'm working hard, you know, like I really want to be good. And so winning the hustle was just like, that was just bliss, you know. And even my dad, cause I was farming with him, and I can remember leaving to get on the plane, and he was pissed cause he was going on vacation and I was leaving too. And he's like, who's going to run the ranch? Cause we're farming, you know. And I'm like, it'll be fine. I'll be gone for 4 days. That's not how it works. You need to grow up, you know. And I'm like, come on, man. Like, yeah, you know, and I'm an adult. My son's a year old. I'm married, you know, like I'm doing everything right. And he was not happy about it. And like he said some things, and just like, you know what, I'm gonna do this, you know. And then I won. He called me and he's like, oh my God, I can't believe you did it. I'm like, that's not what you sounded like 2 weeks ago, you know. And so
about the ranch.
Yeah, so I don't know, like, just I've always felt like I was against the odds per se. Like I never felt like anybody thought I could do it.
But do you feel like that now? Do you feel like literally whenever people start talking about micro drivers in this area, of course they're going to be like, oh, Frank Flood was one of the greats, it's Scott Sawyer and your Chris Andrews. And back home they're talking Stan Yockey and the Vicentos and the Selzies. And do you feel like you're one of those guys that should be brought up in that conversation now? Or does your humbleness of Jake Hagopian that's like, man, that's not me. I do the best I can, and I try and...
I think where I'm from, like in Central California, like 80% of the population is migrant. So growing up as a kid, like my kids are half Mexican, and I say that, I don't say that as a derogatory term. Like my boys are half Mexican, my wife's Mexican, but 80% of the kids I went to school with are Mexican kids. And like, you learn to humble yourself, because if you try to act like you're bigger than somebody else, like I was getting ass kicked by somebody if I thought I was better, you know. And so the town I grew up in is a small town and humbling, and I love where I am from. You know, it's California, but it's not the California that everybody else sees.
Right.
There's a lot of hard work in the people that come out of that area. And so I just feel like, I don't know, maybe if you like add it all up, it's like, yeah, you're that guy. But while I was doing it, I was striving to be that guy, but I was never like, I don't ever feel like I was arrived per se. So like, if you want me to rate another one, like winning the shootout for real, you know, like we won the shootout because of technicality, and you got half of the world, like in like social media, like blew up. Like, dude, there's like people like thinking that you sabotage. You're like, you know, oh no, I saw a win. Yeah. And you know,
that was probably in the back of your mind. You probably just...
Well, it's just like, people don't know me, you know? Like, and like integrity is a huge part of how I bring myself to the table. You know, character to me is everything. That's all I have. Like, if I'm broke, I still have my integrity. If my house burned down, I still have my integrity. If we lose, I still have my integrity. And when people start doing that, they're threatening my integrity, and it's like, it just makes me like boil, because it's like, you're not thinking about who I am. I guess I haven't advertised myself well enough for you to not stop and think like, that's not something that I would ever do. So, you know, you got half of the world like, hey, congratulations, like that's huge. You've always wanted to win the shootout. And you got the other half of the world is like, he doesn't deserve this nonsense. And I'm like, I ran second. Mm-hmm. I was fourth on a restart with 2 to go, and I threw a big slider and it worked, and I was second. We were never in a good enough car to win. We should have won the Outlaw deal that year. So it was just like hungry, like just I need this to happen. Because I remember in the Outlaw deal, like I took the lead on lap 47, and I'm leading, and I'm like, I'm gonna win the shootout. Like I'm gonna win. This is all I've ever wanted to do. I want to win the shootout, and I could retire right now. And then a yellow comes out, and they put me back to second. And like we'd ran like 2.5 laps, but whatever, it's scoring and it happens, and it just wasn't meant to be. And so it's just like it kind of happened, but it didn't happen. But everybody's saying you kind of won the shootout, but I don't think I won. And so, like my whole life started revolving, not my whole life, but like my racing, like everything was building to like, I want to win the shootout. Like I want to win this so bad. And when we finally did win it for real, like I can remember that day, like waking up in the hotel room and like looking at my wife, and I'm like, we're going to win today. Like it's going to happen. Like I'm going to speak it into existence. Like we're winning. And that feeling right there wasn't just me at that time when I won the shootout. I felt everybody around me. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Like I can remember like 2 to go, and just like everybody on the back straightaway is just like swinging hats and going off and going crazy. And I'm like, dude, like people want me to do this. Like people are behind me, and like everything that I've been working for just to get a little bit of credit. Like this is a big deal.
It's bigger than just you.
It's bigger than just me. Like, and people know that back in 16, 17, when we were at the shootout, my dad died, and we made all 4 features that year. And like, I could just feel like when we were rolling down the ramp, like people were like, man, he's still doing this. And truthfully, like the reason why we stayed and I didn't fly home when my dad died was I like looked at my wife, and I'm like, and my son was there, and I'm like, everybody that I care about is here. Like the only people that are going to make me feel better are the people that are here.
Mm-hmm.
And so, fast forward a couple of years, and we win the shootout for real, and like turns 3 and 4 grandstands just going off. Like they were winning with me, so that was a point where I was like, that win felt like just like Oklahoma was behind me, the building was behind me, and none of the D1 stuff, none of the driven stuff, none of the chassis stuff. No, it was just like that guy won, and he deserves to win, and we wanted him to win,
Yeah.
So at that point, it's like, okay, you did it for real. And then, if there's any other races, like winning the memorial race for my dad, that felt right. It felt right. It felt like it was scripted to Hollywood script, and then being able to win with Corey, it's just like, it's a feel-good event, and it's good that my family can still be involved in it, and we can be successful, and we don't lose my dad's namesake in the whole thing. Clay Cup is a big race. I wanted to win. I wanted to win the races that everybody else was winning.
Right.
So then they could say like, you're that guy.
You etch your name in that list, right, of other winners. You said a couple of things there that I want to talk about that I don't want to not talk about. One is you seem like you're becoming more of like the crew chief role. You told me earlier, and I just don't want to believe it, but I'm gonna break the news here. Breaking news. It's gonna be on the thumbnail and everything of this. You told me earlier that Tulsa Shootout this year will be your final race as like a full-time racer. That you're taking the approach more of a crew chief, and honestly, a race dad.
Yeah.
Because Q is like, honestly, watching Q grow up has been pretty cool too. Seeing him come into his own.
Like if you go back and summarize, like trying to win those big races, like I literally like I had to put so much intent into accomplishing winning those races, and they were my goals, but when you're gonna put yourself into something that deep, a lot of other things get put off. Like you can't be a truly, like balance is the toughest thing in this life, and you can't keep things in balance if you want something bad enough. Like I got told before I won the second shootout, but the first real one, like a couple months before, and it was kind of one of these conversations, and the person was like, where will everything be if you just put everything aside for the next however many days until that task is completed? Will everything be in place or will it be unraveled? And I'm like, it'll probably still be in place. And they're like, then that's what you got to do. You got to just go all in 100. And that's what I did. Like, I was like, you know, it's just all in mentally because there's so many other distractions. And so that's the basis of the retirement is like, I've spent so many years with the intent of wanting to win those races. So, you know, and racing's selfish. Like, it's a little bit egotistical. Like, I wanted to be that guy, you know? But I'm not Kyle Larson, you know? I'm not Frank Flood. I don't win 60 races a year. Hell, like, I don't even race 60 races a year.
Yeah.
So, but it was like the races that I do race, it's like there's a lot of energy involved, and like I'm really thorough. Like, I got OCD. And it just takes a lot out of me. And then it takes a lot of me away from the things that I care about. And 1 being my family, 2 being my business, 3 being my customers. And like, I just don't think I can be what I need to be for me as a race car driver and also be everything else I need to be for my business, for my family, for my kids, for my guys, for my customers. And it's just like, I've done everything that I like wanted to do that was like up on the wall. It's like, okay,
Yeah.
that one now. And, you know, so it's like
One more ride.
I mean, I was going to be done this year after the shootout. I'm like, I'm good. And then my buddy, Jordan Burnett's Performance,
Check him out.
he's a trainer. He actually won the first junior sprint Tulsa shootout.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, they don't even have his name up on the deal. But like, he's got the trophy and the jacket and everything.
Dang it.
You know, so we got to get that up there. We got to talk to Matt and Ashley about that. But
I'll make that adjustment.
Jordan Burnett, he's like a really good friend of mine. We grew up playing travel baseball together and racing junior sprints and stuff. And you know, our adult lives have kind of took us apart, and we kind of came back together. And I started training with them to get ready for the shootout because I'm like, man, I'm not all in, and like, I need to make sure that
It takes a lot.
Yeah, I mean, you're
It's
racing
a physical deal.
when you're racing against 15-year-olds, like,
Yeah.
I'm healthy, but I'm not wired.
Fighting machine.
Yeah, exactly. So that's what we did before the shootout. And like, so then we get done with the shootout and he's like, we're not done yet. I'm like, dude, I'm done. And he's like, no, we're not done yet. You know, we got to go to all the big races. So then I go to Raquel, I'm like, hey, like, I don't know if I'm quite done. And she's like, whatever you want to do. So we came to the LA Nationals, and to be quite honest, like, yeah, Snyder was fast, but like, I truly feel like if I had luck, like, we would have been a hot contender to win the deal, and we didn't. But I'm like, okay, I still got it. Then we go home, and it's like, all right, I'm not really going to race much. I'm going to race with Q, and then we go to Speed Week, and should have won a few Speed Week races, and like, it's like, I still got it, but it's not that I'm not having fun. It's just like, it's so much that it really takes a lot of the fun out of it if you don't get that ultimate goal. And so there's just, to me, it's like, I wasn't even going to run the shootout because it's like, I don't think I can achieve that ultimate goal with the preparation that I've taken this year. And it's not that. I'm still working out, still doing things, but it's like, I don't think I deserve to win the shootout based on a guy like KJ Snow, who is working out with us, who works 40 hours a week for me, washes all the cars himself, you know, his cars, does all his maintenance himself, loads up everything himself, drives the truck to the racetrack. And now
fully engulfed it.
He's fully engulfed it. He deserves to win, you know? I don't, you know, like I tell my son all the time, like, people that are all in that just are like, you get the sport rewards the people that are all in. You know, I truly believe that. Unless you're like superior talented, you know, then your talent is on display for everybody. But effort costs $0. And so I just didn't really, like, a couple months ago, I'm like, I don't even, why run the shootout? Like, I feel like I'd be more helpful putting somebody in my car that I can work with and go, like, that's fun for me right now too. But then, you know, just talking to a couple people, and they're just like, dude, just go, man. Like, people are going to be like happy for you. And, you know, like, I've had more people that I never even realized tell me like, man, it's going to be hard not seeing you race. And I'm like, why? And it's like, I like watching you race. And I'm like, really?
Yeah.
They're like, no, it's like, truly, like, before our kids started racing, like, you were the guy that we like going to the racetrack and watching, and I'm like, never really like looked at it from that perspective.
You are that guy. I'm telling you, dude, you are that guy. The last thing that I wanted to touch on was it was something that you had talked about a little bit, was the promoting stuff, because you promote your dad's race and you've been doing that for several years now, and you've kind of grown that thing into, it's something really special. But to see the effort and the detail, the attention to detail that you put into it, I thought, so Talon comes and he tells me how you do your spreadsheet and you do like your timeline and everything. I'm like, yeah, whatever. And then you send me the email and I'm like, this dude's serious about,
well, the stop shirts and stop you right there. Like, a lot of that is Raquel. Like, she's like an Excel guru. So like, she helped me format all that stuff. But at the same time, when like we're busy racing, I can't do, like, we tried to do everything ourselves the first year. It's like, okay, well, like, the only way to get everybody involved and the people, everybody says they want to help, but then it's really hard to like, you here, you here, you here. And it was,
right.
Okay, we got to put all our ideas on paper so that way everybody can kind of at least start thinking the same way that we're thinking.
Everybody should have Raquel. She's the bee's knees.
She is in the shadows for sure.
She gets 2 thumbs up from Haas. She
doesn't like the spotlight.
She does not.
She hates the spotlight.
And that's not like, that's perfectly fine.
The Bushes came and raced with us at Plaza, and like NBC showed up with cameras, and she was just like, at the end of the night, she was like,
see ya.
She's like, you didn't tell me about that part. And I was like, I didn't think it was gonna be like that. And she's like, I'm not. And like, they used like this much. They were there for all night long, and they used like this much on that, you know, that reality show that they do. And she's just like, just take me out of all that. Like, I'm not that part of it. And so it's like,
so the promoting deal there, I saw something pop up on my Facebook page the other day. It's something like 1-4 promotions. And then I talked to Ryan and Jade and Kim at Creek, and I said, are you in on that too? Because you're 14 too. He says, they called me, but I said, I don't know. I don't think I can do it. So let's break into the promotion deal, and let's kind of, everybody's seen some of the things that you've put out there. And like, again, your marketing has come through on that, because the quotes that you guys put out shows you're passionate about the sport, shows what the meaning of 1-4 promotions is.
Yep.
But what is it about? Like, why?
So like Plaza Park Raceway, where we hold the MHM, the Memorial Race for my dad, it's a city-owned property. And so what's happening is like the property needs some improvements, and the improvements that are needed are owned by the city. So the city doesn't mind racing. They don't mind the racetrack, but there's a heavy investment that needs to be made to fix those things that are basically, it's risk mitigation for the city. And they're putting it up for public bid, not because they want to get rid of the racetrack, but they need somebody to fix the issues.
Yeah.
And it, you know, like ADA compliance handicap ramps and cracks in concrete and cracks in the grandstands and erosion on the backside of the grandstands. And quite honestly, like, they're not major fixes, but because it's a public owned property, it requires,
you have to go through the proper channels.
You have to go through the proper channels, and there has to be bids and stuff and everything. And so like, we've known, me and Jason Myers, Jason Myers, World of Outlaws Sprint Car Champion, like our families have a deep rooted connection, with my dad being Jason's mentor growing up racing micros and stuff. And then just when my dad died, Jason and I becoming really good friends with him helping me promote the race and stuff. And Jason's been a promoter himself, and I'm, you know, a single event season promoter now. And we've kind of been in the background. We've known these things and kind of just trying to see what was going on. And then here it is, like, what the city said they were going to do is it's on the docket, and
it's happening quick, right?
It's going to be like, so 1-4 promotions is me and Jason basically digging our heels in the sand saying, this is not really what we want to do. You know, like, Jason's busy with business. He's got a family. They're 3 kids, busy all the time. I got 2 kids, busy all the time, you know, and I'm trying to retire from racing to slow down from being neck deep and everything, and just try to enjoy the ride and still do what I need to do for Driven to grow the business, but not worry about so much of having myself tied up. But if Jason put it to me this way, because I was like, dude, this is a terrible idea. Same way that I told Gary building race cars is a terrible idea. And he's like, yeah, it's a terrible idea, but it has to be done. Who else is going to do it?
Yeah.
Who else is going to do it? And I'm like, I don't know. That's the question. He goes, well, if we don't try to do something, there won't be a racetrack there. And that's not what you want. That's not what I want. That's not good for the sport. That's not good for the community.
And then later on down the road,
and then later on,
going to
kick yourself
in the butt.
Yeah. And so, you know, it's just like, it's tough because once you go on that side of the sport as a promoter, you're the bad guy no matter what.
Yeah.
You know, and that's hard for me because I rely so much on my integrity and character for people to see me and my family, what I'm trying to do a certain way, that once you go to that realm, it's like you're the MFer all the time.
Yeah.
You know, and my dad's memorial race is kind of like everybody kind of lays down their arms and like, okay, it's a little bit different. It's not just a big race. Like Keith will probably get MF 20 times this weekend and he's throwing money out and rides out and he's just trying to help the sport.
Right.
But somebody will be light at the scales and somehow it'll be Keith's fault.
Right.
You know, and it's just like, but at the same time, it's like, if you take 100 people, there's only 2 people that are that way. 98 of them are completely appreciative of what you're trying to do. So it's just like, I kind of came up with this quote, and I do not classify myself or label myself in any way, but the sport needs good people. Good people don't necessarily need the sport. So the sport won't survive for very long without good people and good intentions.
Yeah.
Good people will live on forever without the sport.
Yeah.
Because their lives will carry on with less headache. The people that do accept them and appreciate them will blossom and prosper because good people are contagious.
Mm-hmm.
Bad attitudes are contagious. And if we allow bad attitudes to run the sport, it'll die. And so the sport needs good people. They need good intent. The sport needs good intentions. And good people don't need the sport. So it's kind of one of those things where it's like, you know, if everybody put their best foot forward, like what we have is special. Like this racing community is special. It's just there's a few bad apples that'll ruin it for them because they're not really thinking about the sport. They're thinking about themselves. Mm-hmm. How quick can I get to the next level? How quick can we win over somebody else? Can I cheat? Can I, you know, whatever, you know, we are all selfish in this sport of racing because we want to see ourselves, you know, do well and stand on stage and hold that trophy. But at the same time, if somebody doesn't build that stage to stand on, how are you going to win?
Yeah. God. Jake Hagopian's a deep dude. Like, you spill it all out, though. You spill it all out the way that people need to see it, black and white.
Yeah. Like, if Keith didn't do this, how do you win the KKM?
Yeah.
How is this even a big race?
How do you even have a shot at even getting close to a KKM ride?
Where I learned that was, like, we went to Australia to race, and this is far before the driven days. This is when I'm still starting. I'm a kid. Like, we went to Australia to race. And I've been there. Lucky enough, I've been there a few times, and we've won down there, and we've done well. But the way we would race with World Series sprint cars, and dude, I felt like that guy when I was in Australia, and then I come home and nobody gives a shit. Like, and just the way that the driver was promoted, and like I felt like I won a world championship down there, and it didn't mean anybody into the U.S. Like nobody cared, but it meant something to me because we went to a foreign country and won, and we won their race,
right?
And but you know, like just the level of promotion and the level of just focus on building people up. And I can remember we raced on New Year's Day at Premier Speedway, which is where they hold the Grand Annual Sprint Car Classic, and we raced with World Series sprint cars that night, and there was like 10,000 people in the grandstands, and I ended up winning that night. And they have this like big platform in the pits, and like it was like a Formula One deal. Like I came from behind the stage, they put a sash on me, and they interviewed me, and like there had to be 5,000 people down there, and I'm like, dude, this is crazy. You know, like this is an insane feeling. Like this is why people race, you know, and this is just micros.
Yeah.
You know, and so it's like when you really look at it and you watch Flo and you see, like we get to watch Port City every weekend, and Flo puts on the big races and the shootout and stuff, and there's no lack of entertainment in microsprint racing. Yeah. the cars are smaller. Like I heard somebody today, like, oh, we're just playing around with Matchbox cars this weekend because they're sprint car guys. It's like, dude, this is harder to win this, just as hard to win this stuff as is a sprint car race. Just as much effort that's involved. Just because it's not an 8-cylinder aluminum block, 900 horsepower sprint car doesn't mean that it's not entertaining.
Right.
You know, and so like just putting intent on the value of the entertainment level that our sport provides has been big for me, and how we try to do things. And so hopefully that's what we can do with 1-4 Promotions. I definitely don't want to be driving the water truck. I can tell you that. We're really hoping to be able to, first things first, somebody has to win the bid to save the track. And if it ends up being Jason and I, great. If it doesn't, and our assistance is needed to help the track move in a forward progression and move the sport in California in a forward progression, I'm all about it. It's going to be a lot of work if we are the ones that are doing it, but I'm really hoping for what I learned from Jason is how to be a leader in the senses where people won't blame me for the toilets not working or the scales. Like, just, okay, we're at the helm, but we have people that can handle this.
Right.
But our vision and our intent to build a sport and to save the racetrack still can be pushed forward without, we hang like 90 banners at the MHM, and I can promise you I hang at least 70 of them and take them down. And I have good help from people that want to help, but they're volunteer. They can't do that every weekend, and so just as much as Shane knows, it's like, it's a small city, and too, because you're involved and stuff. So we just want Plaza Park the same way Port City, like with the marquee out front here, when you pull in and everything's nice, and like that's what we want for the sport in California. Yeah. And so that's the goal. We'll see what happens.
If you, in closing, this is going to be my last one. This we're going to close this. I usually ask for advice, but I feel like you've dumped a lot of advice on people, like good, solid knowledge. I want to hear, how would you describe the racing at Port City?
The racing at Port City, it's different, right? Like, you have to be methodical. It's intense and methodical. You got a guy like Chris Carroll that's just trolling the tires, and then you got somebody knocking the fence down. So I just truly feel like it teaches a guy how to be good at everything. So I think the racing is well-rounded in craftsmanship. How's that sound? Yeah. Like California is really intense. More like midget racing. Like everybody's just hammered down, attack. And you don't really see anybody like ruining anybody's day by trolling the bottom. Just the pace of the race is faster, but going faster here doesn't necessarily win out. Right. Like the top opens up and you want to attack, and then somebody's down there just, rolling coal on the bottom, and it's like, what the heck? And so I really think like, and then just like, it's close quarters, it's a lot smaller. And so you really, like, you can see why Frank can win anywhere he goes, because he's just learned how to negotiate traffic. So yeah, I think that Port City is just like, there's just a few places in the US where it's just like, there's hubs, and Port City's the hub here in Oklahoma and in the Midwest. US 24 has proved to be the hub in Indiana. I feel like Plaza Park Raceway is our Port City in California, but not to say the other 3 tracks aren't great. I really, if you look at California racing, everybody thinks like, oh, there's more tracks in the Midwest, but in California, we have 4 microsprint dedicated tracks within 3 hours of each other. Yeah. 2 of them being within 15 minutes of each other, the other 2 being within an hour of each other, but at the end of the day, the radius is 3 hours. And so when you look at that, you don't really have that anywhere else in the country. Not within that close proximity. Now we're all the way on the other side of the country, so that makes it a little bit harder. So our whole market is based around those 4 tracks, and each one of those tracks contribute to the health of the sport. And by losing one, just because we have 4, you can't just say, oh, well, it's okay. Like that one is really prolific and instrumental, and a lot of us that are in the business in that area are in the business because of how well those tracks have served the sport. Yeah.
Well, hey, we're just going to end it there because I feel like you guys have watched the episode of Jake Hagopian now. You need to rewind and go rewatch it again, probably about the 16 to 17 minute mark, and then fast forward to like the 19 to 20 minute mark, and then watch the 21 minute mark because there's lessons to be learned. Jake Hagopian on Haas Talks. Thank you, buddy.
Thanks, man. Appreciate it.
Performance Electronics, custom electronic solutions. From design to manufacturing, let us put your ideas in motion and become your company's full-service electronics manufacturing experts. Performance Electronics.